Okay, hi. Welcome to Learn English with Teacher Melanie. This is the Business English class, and welcome. So my name is Teacher Melanie. I'm from South Africa, so I'll introduce myself to you since this is the first class that we are having together. I have taught in China before, and I've taught kids from the ages of 2 right up to the ages of 18. And that was in class, and online I've taught people from the ages of 2 right up to about the ages of 40 or so. I have a master's degree in business management or business administration. So I have an MBA. I have a UK degree in teaching and training, a diploma teaching and training degree, a level 5. And then I also have a TEFL degree, 120-hour certificate. So welcome, and I hope we are going to have fun in our classes together. Right, so just to give you an overview of the Business English course that we are going to be doing over the past few months or the year, we will be doing 15 units, and these comprise of the following: getting acquainted, discovering my hometown, making plans and predictions, shopping, exchanging study experiences, seeing a doctor, making most out of college life, participating in sports, discussing food, handling personal finances, getting along with others, describing personal experiences, developing good habits, celebrating the holidays and festivals, as we all like to do, and then saving our planet. So today's lesson, we are going to kick off as Unit 1. We will be getting acquainted, which is perfect because we are just getting to know each other. We're just saying hi and finding out who we are and a little bit of news about each other. So the class format will start with the greeting, and then we'll do a bit of a warm-up, but I'll be doing an icebreaker with you today because it's the first time we are meeting, and it's always fun when everybody is new to each other. We'll be doing a review of what you guys learned last year before this course, and then we'll be doing a lesson introduction, some activities around today's lesson. We'll go into some of the language bank, and then we'll do a recap of everything we learned today, and then we will close. So right, let's get started. Okay, as I said, we were going to do an icebreaker. So this icebreaker is called Hello, How Are You? If you attended kindergarten and did English at one of the Chinese kindergartens, you more than likely know the song. So let's stand up and let's sing it together just for a bit of fun and a laugh.
Hello, 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 how are you? Hello, 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 how are you? Hello, 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 how are you?
Awesome, great job. I'm sure that was fun. Okay, so as I said, we were going to do a review of last year's numbers that we learned. Obviously, you guys learned how to count from 1 to 100. So how many chairs, office chairs, since we're doing business, do you see? Shall we count them together? Okay, so what I will do now with the class is we will all count the chairs together, 1 to 16. And then I will ask if somebody can tell me what the object is on that slide, which is obviously an office desk because we are doing business language. And how many of the desks are there? There's only 1. Then obviously, what is that? Or what are those? Those are pens. 3 of them. 3 pens, right? And then we will then go on to the lesson introduction. Okay, so today we are learning, in fact, it's the whole unit. We are learning about meeting people. That is our theme, as I said. making your acquaintance. And then the language functions of what we are going to learn over the unit is the following. Introductions, so how to introduce yourself when you meet new people in a business setting, greetings, and then also forms of address. Great. So are you ready? Yes, let's go. So for the first part of this exercise, what we're going to do is we're going to have a bit of fun. We're going to make a paper snowball. So grab a piece of paper, everybody, rub it together, make it nice and tight so that it looks like the snowball on the screen, and that's going to be your paper snowball. Let's all sit together in a circle. Okay, so now on that piece of paper, open it up again. You need to write 3 things about yourself. So on the screen, I've got some examples. I'm going to tell you a little bit about myself. So I come from South Africa, and I find Chinese winters very cold. The campus is actually far bigger than I expected, and I am a native English speaker. Right, so then I'm going to write those things on my piece of paper. We're all going to write 3 things about ourselves. We're going to throw the snowball, roll the snowball tightly in our hands. Okay, so when the music plays, and I've chosen a really great piece of music, it's almost like musical chairs. So what we're going to do is we are going to, when the music stops, you are going to take your little snowball and you are going to throw it at another person in the group. And when they catch that piece of paper, they are going to read that piece of paper, and then, then as soon as the music starts again, you guys can throw your balls at each other again, and then we're going to stop when the music stops, and then that's going to continue. So I'm going to give you a bit of a sample of the music that I've chosen for this lesson because it's quite fun and quite funky. So remember, when it stops, you pass, throw the snowballs at each other. Music stops. Whoever snowball you have in your hand, you have to read. Then you're going to guess who it is in the group. Okay, let's move. Okay, then once that is done, we are then going to do a little one activity for today's lesson. The other activities I will go through because they can continue. It depends on how quickly the class learns and what their pace is. So I would maybe suggest that we try and do one activity per lesson, just so that we can get through everything well. So, right, so we will go through the conversation text on page 2 in the textbook, and then we will have turns with everybody reading in the class. For me to get everybody comfortable, I will maybe start and pretend that I am the monitor in the class, and then 4 of the other students can volunteer to be Yang, Zhang, Zhao, and Liu. Okay, so then we would finish that. Then we would break up in the groups, and then we would do a bit of a brainstorm and understand who the people are within our group. So we would ask questions like, where do you come from? Which high school did you go to? What are your hobbies? Etc., etc. And then at the end of that activity, one of the other people in your group, we can maybe just say, okay, the person to your left, you are going to be doing an introduction for that person at the end of this activity. So you must remember or write down what it is that you know about this person. And then that student is going to introduce the teammate next to him. Okay. Then, as I said, there were other activities that we would go through. So I'd like the class to have an opportunity to really practice their speaking, because it also has a lot of listening skills as well, and brainstorming is a particular skill. So it would be, I think, prudent to maybe focus on one activity per lesson. But obviously, depending on how bright the class is or how quickly they move through the activities, we can then maybe do one or two as a supplementary activity. Okay, so on the screen, obviously, I've just summarized all of the activities of Unit 1, gone through the conversations, put a couple of pictures together just to make it a little bit more interesting visually. And then also, instead of the kids just working straight out from a textbook, it gives us a chance to improvise and to be a little bit more natural in our activities and speaking projects. Okay, so again, we'll go through activity 4. We'll understand what the difference is between Miss, Ms, and Mrs, which is very important nowadays. And then also, because we are on a campus, it's also nice to know what the professional titles are of the academics on the campus. So, for example, things like what we would brainstorm would be things like professors, doctors. So then also Mr., Master, Sir, Madam. And then also, because we kind of live in the modern world, and we'll be having our Chinese students go all over the world, especially in the UK, where they are exceptionally clued up on equality and diversity. They actually support this whole thing here, which is new to me, something I just learned putting this lesson together, is on people who have chosen to be gender neutral, which is very topical at the moment in the Western world, is people with the title MX. So that is how they would want to be addressed. Very interesting. So obviously a Miss is a young lady that is usually below the ages of 18, or a lady who's about 30 years old and isn't married. A Ms, which obviously we can be somebody who wants to be known as a Ms. They don't care for Miss or Mrs. Or otherwise, it's usually used by people or ladies that have been divorced, like myself. So I am Ms. Melany Marau. And then we've got ladies who are obviously married or have been widowed, who do still identify as married or maintain their married names, and those are usually Mrs. Okay, then there's also the supplementary activity, which is really quite cool because we go through a role play. The role play, the person, one of the team members can act as a host, and then he can have 5 other members in his team that would then be his panelists. And then part of the activity would be where the host would introduce himself as the TV host, then introduce his panelists, and then each one of them could then maybe give a little story about themselves as well. And then there would be a discussion, a normal panel discussion, which would go through questions like, afterwards, once the panel has introduced themselves and they've had a discussion about any topic, actually, we could make it relevant to the university, for example, about what they think of the English department, or what do they think of the sports faculty, things like that. And then we can go into things like, do you agree? Do you not agree? Why do you agree? Why don't you agree? And then what important insights did you get from this discussion that we've just had? And then also a very nice topic is, what would you want to get out of your college years or out of your university learning? So these are things that would also help me learn a lot about the students, and they can learn a lot about each other. Okay, then as far as the language bank goes, I'm not 100% sure, but it might be part of the recap, or it could just be a completely separate topic within the unit that we are doing. So this would be a YouTube video that I've picked up that would wrap up everything that we've learned in terms of the basic greetings, and also then introducing the idea of a formal introduction versus a general introduction versus very formal versus informal introductions. So that would go through that. I'm just going to play you a few snippets of that just to give you an idea of what that is about.
Hi, I'm Olivier. Welcome to Oxford Online English. What's the first word you learned in English? Probably hello, right? Hello is the most basic way to greet someone in English.
There are many different ways to greet people and introduce yourself in English. In different situations, you'll need to use different words and phrases to greet people or make introductions. In this lesson, you can learn about greetings and introductions in English and see which language you should use in different situations.
Imagine that you're on a business trip and you're meeting some important clients for the first time. Or maybe you work in service, for example in a hotel, and you need to talk to guests and customers. In these situations, you'll want to use more formal language.
Good morning, you must be Olivier.
Yes, good morning. I'm sorry, and your name is?
My name's Kasia. Very nice to meet you. Welcome to Madrid.
Thank you.
How are you today?
Very well, thank you. And yourself?
I'm good, thanks for asking. This dialogue uses more formal language. Can you see?
Okay, so that obviously is just to give you an idea of how I would like to supplement some of the classes, give a bit of an introduction, so it's not just me just rambling on and on in the class. Audio visual stimuli is always great in a class, and then obviously this is very relevant. Slide. Okay, there we go. Okay, so these are the language bank greetings that we find in the book that the students can practice. So instead of them having to just keep on looking at their books, at the textbook, they have this in front of them on a screen or on a projector screen, so they could have a look and practice a little bit more comfortably. So it would be something like they could do a role play interaction. And so, you know, I know it's quite a big class. So let's say about 30 people in a class, they could maybe split up in groups of 5. So one person could start with, good morning, John. How's everything going? And then the next person can then say, hey, how are things? And then in South Africa, we say, how's it? That's a very common South Africanism to say hello and greet somebody, where you're actually saying hello and how are you in one sentence or one word actually. And then the next person could say, hi, John, what a pleasant surprise. How are you? It's been a long time. And then the next person, what's new? Hello, Mr. White, it's nice to see you again. And then each person could then rotate, each one of them getting a chance to have a go at pronouncing those phrases, and then moving on to the next. So then we can practice some responses to greetings. So it's also important that people know how to respond in a positive way, in a kind of neutral way, and then in a negative way if they're not feeling well. I do have to apologize about the dogs outside. I am in a place where the dogs don't belong to me, so I can't call them in and get them to keep quiet at this stage, and I really want to submit this demo, so I do apologize. Okay, so then they practice the responses to greetings. We can then again maybe do a practice of, hi John, how are you? Very well, thanks. And you? And then again, hi John, how are you? I'm not so good. So kind of neutral. Not great, but not good. Not bad. And then the other one is, hi John, how are you? I'm fine, thank you. I'm okay. All right, not bad. I can't complain. How about you? So they could then do that as a role play. Basically one person addressing another person. Okay. Then continuing again from the video introduction where we spoke about very formal, formal, general, and informal ways of introductions and possible responses, the kids can do a role play where, again, we can maybe even split the class in half, and maybe this half can be the first bold text person, and then the light bold person can be the other half of the class. So we can practice that as a whole class. So first of all, this side will go, Mr. Brown, may I present Dr. Smith? Other side of the class, Dr. Smith, it's an honor to meet you. And we can practice doing handshakes and things like that, fist bumps, elbow pumps, because, you know, unfortunately with COVID, greetings have changed slightly. Although this is a very formal setting, we would hopefully be greeting each other by shaking hands in the Western world, and maybe in the Eastern world, we would be just nodding our heads, bowing our heads. Again, Alice, I'd like you to meet Mrs. White. She's a colleague of mine. Other side of the class. I'm very pleased to meet you, Mrs. White. And then we can turn it around so that each side of the class gets to be a bold and a non-bolded opportunity to learn the phrases or the actual response. And then self-introductions. So for formal, we could use, as per the textbook, excuse me, may I introduce myself? I'm Miss Melany from the English department. And if I wanted to just kind of be a general introduction, I can say, let me introduce myself. I'm Melany Morale. And then informal, hi, I'm Melany, but everyone calls me Mel. And then we could obviously, this is where I've personalized it, and the kids in the class can then practice doing that with their own introductions. Okay, and then finally, looking at this, where we are introducing a person to a group of people. So we could have one person who we can maybe all practice as a class. Again, just everybody together. We can go, ladies and gentlemen, it is my honor to introduce to you our speaker, Professor White. Wow, and the crowd goes wild. Okay, and then we can we can have one person who would be me. Everyone, this is George. George is a good friend of mine from work. George, these are my buddies, Tim, Jack, and Bill. And we can then practice that either as role play or group, or again, we can try and get the whole class involved. It just depends on how many group or one-on-one sessions we've done. And then or we could split people up into 4 groups. So we can have people that are going to be Ladies and gentlemen, it's my honor to introduce to you our speaker, Professor White. And then the next group of people will be me. Everyone, this is George. George is a good friend of mine from work. George, these are my buddies, Tim, Jack, and Bill. And then another group will be George's, and they'll say, hi there. And then Tim will say, pleased to meet you. And then we can maybe just rotate that again so that everybody gets an opportunity to repeat the sentence one by one. Okay, so now to recap for the entire lesson for today, we are going to choose the correct form of address for these particular sentences. So for example, we want to know, is Mrs., Ms., or Miss the correct form of address for if Mrs., Ms. Smith is married? Okay, so we could either maybe have people put up their hands to answer, or we could split the group, or otherwise, yeah, just answer. Pick up your hand and answer first. And you would then circle. It is obviously the correct one is Mrs. because she is married to Mr. Smith. And then May is a divorced lady, so she is therefore a Ms. Okay, and then we'll just go through those correct answers, and that would be the recap of the lesson. Just because we are doing greetings and it's something fun, it depends on the class that I have. If I have a fairly outgoing and a fun class, we could maybe do something like the goodbye song. It just depends on what the vibe is that I have in the class. So we could maybe do something like the goodbye because we are doing greetings and making an acquaintance with somebody. So we need to say goodbye. And this also teaches people, your students, different ways of greeting when you say goodbye. It's not just cheers, bye. We have other ways, like as we hear in the song. So to finish off the class, we can go.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Goodbye. See you. Thank you.
And that wraps up my demo, and I hope I've covered some of how I would handle the class and that I've included a lot of the content that is necessary for the lesson plan.